Let's bring in New York State Senator Reichlin Melnick, who tweeted this. Tish James and her team have found that Governor Cuomo sexually harassed multiple women in violation of state and federal law. It is long past time for him to resign and face consequences for his actions. If he refuses, the Assembly should impeach. And State Senator Reichlin Melnick is here with me now. Senator, thank you very much for being here. So what were your thoughts when you heard what the Attorney General, the findings of this 5-month investigation?
Well, Alisyn, thank you. I was furious when I heard this because you have now the highest law enforcement officer in New York State after an exhaustive, months-long investigation by dedicated investigators, as your panel reported, interviewing dozens of people, countless people. They have found that the governor of the state of New York is a serial sexual harasser, that he broke state and federal sexual harassment laws. And we should not be comfortable as elected officials and as New Yorkers having somebody like this continue to lead the state.
He's not resigning. So now
That's what he says. So I think, as I said in my statement, I think the Assembly now seriously needs to move forward with the prospect of impeachment. Under the state constitution, it's got to start there, and then we'll come to the Senate where we would have to take a final vote on that. But I have certainly seen enough from what had been reported publicly. I called for him to resign back in March, and the governor, in response to all these concerns, said, well, let's wait for the investigation, see what it says. We waited, we've seen, and I think the facts are very clear.
Well, it sounds like the Speaker of the Assembly has not seen enough. The statement that he put out says, we will now undertake an in-depth legal examination of the AG's report with the help of a legal firm. Why is that necessary?
I think you'd probably have to ask the Speaker. As I said, I think I've seen enough. I know the Assembly Judiciary Committee, and I have colleagues who are on there who have been working hard at this. But I think the time is now to speed this process up and to make sure that we have a resolution, and so New Yorkers don't have to go for months further with a governor who is so profoundly damaged and has really, I think his denial of these allegations is an insult to any woman out there, and it's an insult to our intelligence and, frankly, an insult to the Attorney General and her investigators who looked into this and corroborated all of these allegations.
How long do you think the State Assembly investigation will take?
I don't know, but I hope that they will continue what they're doing and wrap it up as soon as possible. And if the governor has still not resigned, I would think that impeachment is an appropriate remedy at this point.
Beyond impeachment, what do you think? What consequences do you think that he should face?
So I'm not a lawyer, and I don't want to speculate on the legal consequences he should face. I know the Attorney General was very careful in her statement to say that she has tried to find the facts and is not trying to make any prosecutions. It certainly sounded like, reading between the lines there, that some of the women he harassed might have a case in civil court, which certainly they should file if this information is correct, which it seems like it is. But I think politically what you have to look at is he seems determined to cling to power no matter what. And he's using the Trump playbook of denying everything, claiming to be a victim of politics, refusing to take responsibility for his actions. And so I think politically New Yorkers at large, and certainly my colleagues in the state legislature, have had enough. And it is time for him to move on. We've got a wonderful and well-qualified Lieutenant Governor, Kathy Hochul, who could make history by being the first woman to be governor of the state of New York. And that would be quite an outcome to all of this, and a very fitting one, I think.
Senator Reichlin Melnick, thank you very much for your time. We'll be watching closely what the State Assembly General does next.
Thank you so much.